Good evening, Glenavit. I'm Mistress Roz with,
Dame Dot and
Dinara.
that would be Duchess Dinara, your Grace. So we asked for Grace to join us to do one of our holiday classes this season. And we thought it would be a great idea to review, maybe for some of our new people, maybe as just a refresher course on event staff and roles that go on at events. So we were like, let's try to figure out how to make this happen. And we thought it'd be a great holiday class. So thank you for being with us, Your Grace. We appreciate your time. And I'm going to guess you're going to start with the big three.
Yes, the big three, of course. We're talking Autocrat, Feastocrat, and Reservationist. Others may say the big three should be something else, but that's what comes to my mind. Starting with the Autocrat. So the Autocrat or event steward, that person is responsible for overall ensuring that the event happens and that the event runs hopefully smoothly, at least runs at all. That person, of course, does not need to do all the jobs and all the work themselves. Some people try, and you kind of see them rocking in the corner probably by, Saturday afternoon. But they're involved in bid process. If the event has a theme, coming up with that with some of the other members of the group, and making sure that the other jobs are assigned and are being taken care of, whether it's they are going to take care of it if someone gets sick or at the last minute something happens, or if they have multiple people they already have signed up to do certain jobs, so there are backups. So a lot of their work is, I think, in the front end to make sure everything is ready to go, that wherever the location has been reserved by the seneschal of the group, and any type of extra things are going to happen if you have to have porta potties, those sort of things, to check in and make sure that whatever logistics are for that site is being met. They also are usually already have someone in mind that is going to help them with the event as far as Feastocrat, because that, if you are having a feast, is a huge expense and a large workload for that person or persons. So basically the Autocrat is, I guess, the event manager, making sure everything happens, everything goes off. And if something happens in the middle of the night, that's who they're going to come wake up out of bed if you don't have someone as your co that wants to stay up night.
And I think society, Kapora states that the Autocrat is the on-site, like, deputy seneschal or something like that. Is that how it reads, or something like that?
Right. Yeah, they're going to, I'm not going to know the exact words there either, but they are the responsible party as far as if something happens. The Autocrat is called in, as well as if the seneschal's there.
Yeah.
Hopefully nothing ever happens. But
now you said something interesting in that same vein. The seneschal of the group actually is the one that signs the contract for the location, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And would the Autocrat be also on the contract as well? So is it both of them?
The seneschal of a group is the warranted person that has the right to expend funds or commit funds for the group. So if it could be, anybody could be an Autocrat, like anybody that's a member of the SCA that pops up and goes, I have a great idea for an event, or I just want to run our standard event that we do every year. That could be anybody with a good idea and some people behind them. But they do not necessarily have the authority from the SCA to commit the SCA to something, and the seneschal has to do that. Yes.
Gotcha. So, and then my question was that you mentioned a bid process, and I believe that's mainly for kingdom level events. There's a bid process for that, but I know, like, in my local group, if you're going to Autocrat, you're asked to put together like a bid, but like a budget as well, so that we all know what to expect. So is that kind of what when you were saying the bid process is?
Right.
I guess that's two different things, budget and bid.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I'm in Vogelberg. It's a small shire once that want to come up and do the same event. So you're not necessarily going to have multiple people who want to autocrat and need to put together a bid within the shire. Some groups you may have some baronies that are big enough that they have, multiple people every time that they submit bids that would include a budget and what the theme was and, the whole, whatever the package would normally be for that group, versus kingdom level, because that is certainly a budget and bid package. So you can have a bid package within your local group. It's just what your standards are for that group, and what they would normally want to see that comes to your, local shire meeting or, barony meeting to present and say, this is the budget. This is when I want to do it. This is the potential sites we want to use, so everybody can vote to see whether either, yes, we want to do that, or maybe, maybe it's a bad time of year that goes up against something that, the autocrat that is bidding may not be thinking of. So you could just have a budget that you're put forward that anybody who steps forward says, hey, I want to do the next Slay the Dragon, you're it, but how much are you going to spend? So you just submit a budget to the group to be voted on. And then it may be as formal as kingdom level bids that have a much more formal budget and much more formal requirements, as far as what the kingdom needs to see to say, yes, we agree that you can have this bid and that your budget meets whatever standards that they have laid forth.
So I have another question regarding kingdom level events. So it is my understanding that the events for kingdom level are kind of assigned in an order, but yet the group is still responsible to turn in a bid. Is that correct?
Yes.
And would that come through the seneschal that would submit that with the autocrat assigned at that time? How does that?
Yeah, yes. So there is a schedule as it is right now. I mean, it could change. I'm not responsible for any of that. But there is a schedule that's set forth, several years in advance of this group, this group, this group. So in 2 or 3 years what events, what kingdom level events that your groups are going to be responsible for, to give you plenty of time to get it together and plan is the idea. You do still have to provide a bid because, I mean, frankly, a kingdom level event, the kingdom's going to need to make sure, or the financial committees needs going to make sure that you're projecting, a profit that is split, and that it's the site is going to be able to hold a number of people, what are the kitchen facilities, that sort of thing. So you can have the amount of amenities that we are accustomed to in Glenavon. So yes, and it could be different by the group, and every little group has their own kind of traditions. But your autocrat who has stepped forward within that local group, along with the shawl, would fill out that bid and the king's checker. And I think it's actually a form now. So I may be my email, it may not be I think it's not by email anymore, it's by form, but you still have to fill out the bid because they want to make sure you're gonna provide a wonderful event for the kingdom as a whole.
Yeah.
Okay, and how early does that have to be in? Because I know the list is done. Do you know?
Several.
Y'all just kind of did one. So is it 6
Wow.
months a year? Am I stumping y'all?
Well, no, I was going to jump in and say there's a pinned post on the Glenavon group that has the complete list of the groups and the event, kingdom level event they're being assigned, and that's also in the kingdom seneschal's group. It's also located there. And I think I heard, not to be rumory, that they're about to release the updated version of that. So like Iron Ox just did Crown List. We are not on the books to host another kingdom level event till like 2025 or 26 or something like that.
Right.
So I mean, I think I kind of dig this new process because I know, hey, I don't have to worry about this for a year, 2 years. So
I
Just
think,
make sure y'all are checking the list so you know when your group's up.
yeah, definitely. I think it's like a 6 months, but I don't remember if it's just you're required this many months out or suggested that many months out, but I'm going to 6 months tonight. How about that? That sounds good.
That
well,
sounds
I'm a
good.
planner. I don't know about you, your Grace, but I'm a planner, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking like 9 months to a year in advance or something. Like let's think about this because if I do last minute.
My only thing with a year is if the cost could change. You may have to update your bid just for inflation lately, but it wouldn't hurt. It certainly would not hurt. Now, if you're using a Louisiana state park, you can only reserve 13 months out. So
Right.
that would be as far as I think, at least in this state that I'm in, that you could even say, yes, I have, a site for that date. But other sites in other states, you can reserve much further out. And I mean, frankly, what does it hurt to have a plan way in advance?
Right. That when it's up,
Yeah.
you just fill up
Never
that.
I mean,
hurt.
whoever the crown is at the time would appreciate not a panic.
Well, and I'm sure our chronicler would like to get stuff in it well in advance too. You technically you can advertise in for free in the ambassador
Right.
for 3 months. You get a free space.
Is that
Right.
the autocrat's responsibility, or does that have to come from the seneschal to get in?
I think usually the seneschal sends that in, but
Because there's a lot of things that have to come from the seneschal, versus the autocrat. So it's
right.
confusing.
I believe it's in the financial policy, or at least I think it was for our group, but it's been a few years since I was the exchequer here, for various reasons. So
Communication. We should say communication is probably a wonderful thing in that. So
yes.
moving forward, and that was a brief overview. There's lots of little things that crop
Oh,
up Autocrat has to deal with because in the end, the buck stops with the Autocrat, and
right.
the event is to make sure everything else runs smoothly. And
Yeah.
they're
If anything
also
goes wrong, it's going to be the autocrat, whether the autocrat knew nothing about it.
right. So the second member of the team is which one would you like to talk about first, or the big three?
Oh, we'll do reservationist. That can literally be anybody that is responsible and organized and a member of the SCA. It does not have to be the autocrat. Also, in some cases, some places used to do that. I don't know if anybody still does, because that would be 2 large jobs. It could be your exchequer, but it also doesn't have to be, as long as you are in communication very often with your exchequer and with your autocrat. And that person is the one that is going to be getting the information as it comes through from PayPal to know whether it's top bump, bottom bump, stick me in with Dame Dot, or for heaven's sake, don't stick me in with Dame Dot, whatever notes somebody has put on there.
Yeah.
To keep track of how many beds have been sold, how much feast has been sold, and as you're if you're running out of space, that sort of thing. Most events or most groups do use PayPal now, so you're giving 75% of the feast space and bed space to PayPal to sell. And so you're having to track to make sure that, if you're running out of those spots, then PayPal deputy may come back and ask you to release some of the other spots. And the reason they withhold some spots is you need to consider whether or not the crown's coming, your heirs are coming. If you have something in your financial policy that states if anybody gets in for free, and whether it's get in for free or also bed space for free, whatever, it depends on your financial policy.
So not to jump too far ahead, but you mentioned the crown and the heirs with the reservations.
Yes.
So is that the reservationist? Is it the reservationist job to reach out to the crown, or is it the job of the crown's travel coordinator to reach out to the reservations? Does it matter?
Does it matter? Probably not. If as a reservationist you want to get a jump and you see on the Royal Progress that one, both, all four, whoever, which royals are coming to your event, if you want to reach out to their travel coordinators and go ahead and say, I see they're going, we want to make sure they are, or verify, and to get their reservation, their registration number, membership numbers, and, full legal names, that sort of thing for your troll records, that is fine. However, I can't tell you really the timeline. That way you would control the timeline better. But otherwise, the travel coordinators for both the crown and the heirs should be reaching out to the reservationist to let them know the king's coming, the queen's coming, whoever's coming. Here's their membership numbers, name, etc. And hopefully they let you know when they expect to be there. If they're staying for feast or whatever, if they're day tripping, whatever the case may be. So you know whether to save them beds, save them feast space, that sort of thing. If you do get that information, please let your autocrat know that the royals are coming, because then the autocrat needs to step in and either assign or ask someone to step in to be a royal liaison for the event. If no royals are coming, you don't need a royal liaison position. But it would be very handy to have somebody that is responsible for all the on-site and before-site questions that the crown or heirs or some of their entourage may have.
That is beyond reservations. I'm sorry. That is anything else beyond the reservations. That would be.
Yes.
So we might need to come back to Royal Liaison in just a second.
Yeah,
so,
that's fine.
But so that is what the reservationist, as far as special something that they would do.
Right.
Maybe an Excel, knowledge of Excel spreadsheets.
Yes, the
spreadsheet program.
Yes, you'll need troll sheets. I'm sorry.
No.
Yes, you will need to use, I guess it doesn't have to be Excel. The ones that I've always used were an Excel format, some sort of spreadsheet type format for your troll sheet or your gate sheet, your reservation sheet, whatever we want to call it. And PayPal would be sending PayPal deputy, once all that PayPal closes and everything's been reconciled, we'll send you a list on an Excel spreadsheet of all the people that paid through PayPal and how much they paid, etc. So you have all that information, both so you can double check and make sure that you got every one of them as they came in and were emailed to you. And so your exchequer knows how much in funding that they should be expecting that the deposit's made directly from the PayPal deputy.
Thank you, everyone out there in the internet world, staying with us. We're going to get through this.
Who makes, I'm going to just jump ahead. Who makes the bed arrangement? Is it that, I know we already talked about that. Does the reservationist do the cabin chart
assignments? Yeah.
Or is that something that falls under the autocrat, or could you give it to somebody else entirely and say, hey, take this? But who traditionally does that?
Traditionally, the reservationist does that. They could certainly give it to somebody else and say, hey, these people are reserved and this is what they want. To me, I think would be confusing, but to each their own. Right. When I've been reservationist, as the emails came in that, Roz and Fergus are buying 2 bed spaces and these type of bunks, I put it on my troll registration sheet. And then I would have a separate spreadsheet that was set up and split up how the beds were in each cabin. So if it was, 6 beds in a cabin with however many tops and bottoms, or if it was just tops, whatever, I would create that so I could then place those people in those beds. So then that's already done. Once we get to site, you print it off. Everybody knows where they need to go. Ideally, if you have time and bodies and energy, it would be great to take those to the front door of the cabin Some people even go to the point of taping their name to the bed, which is awesome. It just depends on how much energy or people you have on some of that. But I certainly recommend assigning beds to bodies and not letting someone prepay, pre-reserve, and show up and they don't have a bed.
Right.
Because then, in my opinion, the reservationist hasn't done their job.
How often do you get updates from PayPal? Like, are you getting if I reserve, does the reservationist automatically get it, or is it like a weekly update?
I haven't done it in a couple of years because I've been otherwise busy. But at that time, as they paid, we would get an email saying, you
This
know,
person
Bob is
reserved.
paid and they want, you know,
The
3
bottom
tops
line.
and 2 bottoms and, you know, however many beach spaces.
Right. Yeah. And we may put a shout out in the down below for people to, if you know, to leave us a comment about that. And I also would like to say, I think the reservationist is probably the role that has some very specific things they need in their toolbox to at the event, like receipt book for stuff like that, highlighters, pens, that sort of thing. And there's probably some other stuff they might need.
Right. What always would carry with me is I always did the reservationist as the exchequer. So I had my exchequer box that I packed with receipt books, ink pens, stapler, tape, sticky notes, anything that you might need a tiny little mobile office to have. Because if you're the one sitting behind the desk, whether or not, you know, you did all that work before, maybe you're just there to work, you know, registration. That's where everybody comes to. Where is everything? Do you have maps of things? Do you have a piece of tape? Do I have a pen that I'm never going to come bring back? So make sure you have multiple ones of those.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody's going to come to the.
Yeah. So everybody, if you've done
Date.
reservations, so if you've done reservationists out there, leave a comment about the list of supplies that you think is important for a reservationist to have at the reservation table.
And some
So
Advil.
let's wrap up the Advil, Tylenol.
Change. How much change? Because that's another thing that you would have to have is cash money for when people get there, right?
Right. That is something you need to work with your exchequer if you are not the exchequer and the reservationist. I mean, usually around $150 or $200. It depends on what type of change you need based on how your event structure is. I mean, if you know you're going to have to make ones, then you're going to need, you know, obviously we'll need some ones, but everything, if it's in $30, $35, $40 and $5 increments, then you may only need, you know, 10 ones. You don't need a whole, you know, $50 worth of ones, that sort of thing. But if your event fee is $17, you could potentially give out a lot, you know, that's ones add up. And
You know,
some people have changed, but not a lot.
Dot, that sounds like a lot of math to me.
It's a lot of math. 5s and 10s, baby.
Calculator. Let's put a calculator on that
yeah,
list.
calculator, a hand little, you know, that's good too.
So rounding out your top 3 is the
Feastocrat. First, you hopefully have decided whether or not you're having a feast, because if you don't have one, you don't need anybody to cook for you. The Feastocrat is certainly someone that is going to need to do a lot of communication with your Autocrat, probably also with your reservationist, maybe even with the royal liaison that we're going to get back to, depending on who is coming. That person needs to communicate or be very clear as to what they are providing. Are they only providing feast on Saturday night and someone else is providing, you know, a breakfast? Are you doing a fundraiser lunch? Is there going to be a traveler's fair? Is that one person or maybe, you know, 2 co-feastocrats prepared to do all those meals, or what are they exactly going to do? I've seen it several times where the Autocrat had an idea of what the Feastocrat was going to do, and that is not what the Feastocrat was planning on doing. And then it was kind of like this shuffle, panic. Oh, but what about breakfast? Or, oh, what about who's making the tea? Some Feastocrats don't. They only make food. They don't make any coffee, tea, other beverages. And if they are making them, are they just making them for the feast, or are they going to make them all day long? I know these are a lot of nitpicky type of questions, but you know, people have expectations, and it's so much better to nitpick it and know what you're getting, or what you're expecting out of somebody than someone having bad. They feel like there's something bad about it. So it's just boiled down to communication on what is the Feastocrat planning to do, and then based on that budget and what was discussed, how much funds are they going to need? So did you already have, before you submitted your budget, get with them on how many people are they planning to cook for? So you know how much food they have to purchase for what the estimate should be on what you have to charge somebody for a feast to break even. And then how much more are you going to purchase for foods that are eaten by everybody? So just for a minute, the food for everybody versus the food that is paid for feast. If you go in and you pay for extra for a feast, that is for typically could be a different time of the day, but the typical is the Saturday night feast. You know, your extra $8, $10, $15 for that meal. There are other meals that are a lot of times provided. Traveler's Fare on Friday night, breakfast on Saturday, sometimes lunch on Saturday, sometimes not. Whatever the other, I'm going to say quote unquote free foods are, where you do not have to pay an extra feast price. Because the people that are purchasing feast are technically only buying that one meal, and everybody else that is eating all the free food, that is coming out of your site fee budget. So a lot of times it gets a little confusing but I only have this much money for feast, but you need more money for food.
Hang on. So let me make sure I understand. So you're like talking like everybody who comes in a day trip getting a cup of coffee. That's maybe not part of the buying in
or breakfast.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Okay. So
two separate budgets, basically, something coming out over the general event stuff, and then one budget is specifically for that feast for Saturday night.
Right. And
it might be a couple $100 for the luncheon, or might be $50. I'm just going to do coffee.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Because it's not fair to the people that are coming in to buy the extra food, the one meal feast, and having to pay more to cover the price of the food that's being served to everybody that shows up to either day trip or, you know, maybe they're staying the weekend but not purchasing feast. So that cost, even if it's a couple $100, then that's part of what your event fee pays for.
Makes sense. I see another class in our future and how to budget. I mean, seriously. I mean, that could be that could be a much needed. Let's watch Dinara do spreadsheets.
Oh my God, nobody wants to watch that. I do that all day.
Well, I figured you know how to do it, but let's work some numbers. You know, this is what we know, and this is what we need to figure out what our price is going to be. And
and there's some really good Feastocrats out there that have done it so many times they can exactly tell you, you know, I need 12 of this and it's going to cost exactly, you know, $54. They're just really good at it, and they're really good at budgeting. So they can help you, whoever is putting together the bid, as far as all the food versus just the feast food. So you're not charging extra just for that, just for that one meal. So
okay. And I feel like go ahead, Dot.
I was going to say, and so much goes into it besides cooking the food. It's also running the service. How are you going to provide? Is it going to be people running out trenchers? Is it going to be somebody coming up and getting their own? That's decided by the Feastocrat as well, or is that just given to the hall steward? If they have a hall steward.
Well, hall steward is another position that a lot of groups tag somebody into. And the Feastocrat would normally have their idea of this is how we're going to serve, because based on what the group has, do they have great big pretty soup terrains, or do they have a giant 55-gallon drum of soup that somehow they've got to get out to people? So a lot of times the kitchen or the hall, and then the supplies or the kitchen servingware will a lot of times dictate how it's going to have to be served. But the Feastocrat should work with the hall steward, and if there's not a hall steward, with whoever else the Autocrat sends in there to assist, because the Feastocrat cannot be stirring pots and making sure no one's getting burnt and cut and all that's helping out in the kitchen, and set up tables and chairs and decoration if you're decorating and all that sort of thing. So that's leading into your hall steward. So yeah, that person, if you have one, certainly needs to work with a Feastocrat on what's expected, and preferably on what's expected way before 5 minutes before starts. So, and I think it's all about communication.
All about communication.
All about communication.
All about communication. Perfect time for my internet to freeze.
You're working wonderful.
But yeah, communication's key for everything. To make sure things run as smoothly as possible and you have as least amount of hurt feelings as possible. And
so I feel like over communicate with your group and your key people and people who are working the event and your staff. Because you want it to be a great event, so over communicate. Make sure everybody knows what's going on.
Over communicate. And if someone is the Autocrat and they go, hey, I want you to be the hall steward, and you go, cool, I love to do that, and you go home and go, no idea, don't know what I'm supposed to do, I'll just show up and somebody's telling me. They may not tell you. They may assume that because you said that'd be great, I would love to do that, and then people are mad at you because they had the expectation that you were going to set up the hall at a certain time. You were going to break down chairs for classes at a certain time. You were going to have it set back up for feasts at a certain time. And you just thought, I don't know, you had a cool job. So communication, if you don't know, if you're like, hey, we need a Nastycrat, and you're like, I would love to be a Nastycrat. That sounds great. Ask
but
what
you
the
don't
heck
know what
that
that
means.
is.
Nastycrat may not be what you think it is.
It may not be. It may not be. It may not be, unstopping toilets or putting in toilet paper.
It seems like now we're flowing into some of those other roles that you might not realize you need as part of your staff at an event. So you've mentioned hall steward, which could be as simple as announcing removes or the full setup shebang for the hall and making sure everything is going to anything related to the serving a feast and the decorations. It could ask, make sure you understand what is involved in that. And you also just mentioned Nastycrat. Let's go to that one first.
So Nastycrat, and everybody is going to watch this and have a different idea of what all these things are and do, probably from their own experiences or their tradition in their group, and that's fine. But to me, Nastycrat's the person that makes sure there are toilet paper in bathrooms and make sure there are hopefully soaps and that sort of thing. Especially, well, anytime, because I kind of don't like germs, but especially this day and age, I would think after a pandemic, everybody would want to wash their hands at all times. But anyway, so sometimes, toilets stop up, toilets overflow. That doesn't mean you need to be the one necessarily plunging the toilet, but you may get called in to help. What do we do? And you can go get the park ranger, or at least go find the Autocrat and let them know, hey, this is what's going on. I don't know what to do about it. Who do I need to go talk to? Of course, if you have mad plunging skills, get after it. That's cool too. But it's a taking out the trash. That is very handy. I know I always appreciate and notice if I am going in and out of like the hall where the kitchen is or bathrooms, and I notice whether or not the trash later gets emptied or if it has just spilled out on the floor and
Oh,
yeah, right.
yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
I
course,
think they're the
I'm usually
unsung heroes. I think
They
that
are.
those the ones that keep us all happy without going in going, ooh. Because there's
Ooh,
nothing
yeah.
like when you have to use their facilities and you just go, no, I'll hold it for the next 24 hours. Kind of makes life hard.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
trees in state parks. But
Right.
yeah,
All
so the
right.
Nastycrat is they're cleaning up and picking up, making sure that happens so the rest of us don't have to, hopefully.
All right. And then the third position that you've sort of already mentioned is a royal liaison. And so let's unpack that all the way. What is a
All
royal
right.
liaison?
Royal Liaison. So you have just found out as Autocrat, the Reservationists let you know that the Royals were coming. And you need to assign somebody as a Royal Liaison. This is a pretty important role because anytime the crown or heirs or all of them or visiting royals come to your event, they usually bring people with them. And at times, whether or not the crown is there can make or break whether you break even or make money. Because if they come and they're bringing, because they're free, we get that. But if they bring 20 people with them that are only coming because they're coming, 20 people's a lot for small groups. So your royal liaison needs to be in communication with the chancellors, either the heirs chancellor or the crown's chancellor or both. You could have multiple, you could have two royal liaisons if you want, one for each set of royals. It doesn't really matter as long as they communicate. So once you learn, okay, they're coming, the royal liaison should reach out in an email to their chancellor to let them know that these are the things that we can provide at this event as a group, whatever that may be. There is not any requirement of which you have to provide the crown. It is a courtesy, and it varies from group to group. Some groups have bedding that they will provide. Some groups have feast gear that they will provide, so the crown doesn't have to bring those sorts of things, whatever that may be. So create an email that is, we're going to provide bedding for 1 bed, 2 beds, whatever the case may be, or maybe they're providing just blankets and no sheets, maybe whatever it is, you only need to bring your pillow, or maybe the answer is we have none of that. Please plan to, bring all that with you. Same with if you're providing, and we will set up feast gear, that sort of thing. Roz, you have a question?
I do. So who is the royal liaison talking to?
The royal liaison is emailing the chancellor of the crown or heirs.
Okay. Just want to
And
make
they
sure
have
I'm taking notes, so I'm trying to make sure I'm following to get the description right. So,
and all those emails are on the website, the Glenavon website,
right,
or as chancellor and all that.
And I think being on the entourage, for some people that I've known, it's really important to have that communication, because there's nothing like trying to help the crown get set up and not knowing what you're supposed to have, because there's just so much to the schedule and to what the crown is ultimately responsible for that day, that night, all that good stuff. And to be efficient, knowing, hey, entourage needs to set up the bedding. We need to make sure that that gets there, because I might have taken it home for you. You might not have it, and it might be coming, well, not you anymore. But you know what I mean? And that communication is really important, that we know if we don't know, we know who to go to. And
Right.
that's the key. If as a person of many entourages, having that liaison that you can go to and say, okay, this is not an event thing. This is a royal thing.
Mhm.
What is the game plan?
Right.
That's very beneficial.
Right. So they just need to say, this is what we can provide or not. And, ask if there's something specific that, the crown or heirs would like, if they can provide it, that sort of thing. They are usually the person, if the group decides to give any type of gift to the crown, sometimes, it'll maybe, some bottles of water and candy, whatever that may be. I will just say that if they do that, or if somebody else in the group does that, those things cannot come out of group funds, because it is benefiting an individual. So just as I mentioned, so the royal liaison, once they get to, well, let me back up. They would also, either the royal liaison or the autocrat, I would suggest everything run through one person, so the chancellor is not getting multiple requests from multiple people that are basically the same thing. And especially if anyone is copying the crown on it, to not try to ask them without communicating in your group first, if people already know the answers. Just because the crown do get a lot of emails, and sometimes it gets very confusing because one person may have emailed the crown, another person emailed the chancellor, and they may not be the same information. So communicate internally first, and before you go to the crown's people, please.
And then have one person making those things. Don't just to clarify, one person contacts the chancellors.
Yes.
To cut down confusion.
And with the crown coming and setting up a schedule for the event, then involves the crown. So have a loose draft of your schedule, and then send it to the crown, because they may have some things that they want to add, or that they have already advertised of, hey, it's the yeoman, whatever, yeoman championship or whatever that they're planning on having at your event. But remember, we'll bring in people, and your bottom line will come up, to make sure that what they have planned fits in the schedule. Because frankly, we all do this to have fun, but we are playing at monarchy.
Right. So like a bardic competition.
Yeah,
make sure that that's on the schedule.
Well,
or
I'm going to go a step further. So it is, if the royals are coming to your event, then it sort of becomes not even sort of, it becomes at their leisure.
It really does.
So if for event staff out there, suddenly you see, that's coming, you're probably gonna need they're coming there, you need a royal liaison, then you need to, everything's tentative or at their leisure, and making sure before you say that this is set, you need to make sure the crown's okay with it. They might have to have a meeting. They might want to have, like you said, a competition. There's things that the crown can, that they need to do per, every reign. So, okay. Yeah.
And I get the frustration of, well, we wanted to do this thing at our event. I totally understand that, but there are benefits to having the crown around.
And and then events can get busy. It really can get busy, but trying to squeeze everything in. But that's a good point.
And so then once the event is going, what's the job of the liaison?
So once the event is going, everybody shows up, and they're all tucked in or whatever for the event. Then the liaison should be the person that doesn't necessarily have to meet them at their car or something, but let them know once they're on site who they are, if they don't already know them, and how they can reach them if if they need something. If they need a schedule change, or if something's coming up, or something needs to be moved around, that should go through their liaison, because the crown shouldn't have to go find 12 different people who might know a thing. They should have one contact. Or their chancellor, whoever may be on site that day, to have one contact of, this needs to be pushed back a little bit or move forward, or whatever the case may be. So there is a clear line of communication with little confusion, and everybody knows the role. You know, if you've got one royal liaison, they know that they're gonna show up, and you know, something happens needs to be changed, then they'll go find the Autocrat or the Feastocrat or the whoever.
Okay. So I thought of another role I wanted to ask you about that we haven't seen a lot of. Site heralds.
Oh,
we
good
used to, didn't we?
It used to be everywhere.
Yeah, site heralds, for those of you out there who have not seen very many of them. Every group used to have a herald, a voice that would do voice heralding, not, you know, this type of. And instead of looking all about our smartwatches and phones and everything, they were going around at 7 in the morning. They were going to knock on every cabin and say, hey, oh yeah, it's 7 a.m. and you know, whatever's about to happen. Yeah, you normally see them nowadays for whatever class is going to start, or drop off your children for children's activities at this time, or a tournament's going to start, that sort of thing. But it's just another position to decide if your group is going to have, and if you can field internally or ask another group for assistance as far as being heralds, and so people know what's going on and what time it is. And
I personally love them because I don't think I've been to one event that the schedule hasn't changed in some way. And
yeah,
they're great for going around and making those, hey, this has been pushed back, or this is being now, you know, early or whatever. And somebody
yeah,
who
I mean,
loud
I
voice.
love them for, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I love them for that reason. And I mean, we were crowned and we're like, wait, I thought this was supposed to happen at this time. And oh, then nobody told you? Boy, a herald would have been great.
Okay. All
Really
right.
good about it.
So, and I noticed the time on this, so we're going to go through the smaller roles really quick, if that's okay, Your Grace. Parking attendant. For those who suffered through Camp Camilla parking, you know.
Yeah,
Oh,
if your site has sketchy parking, or there are areas that people cannot park, it's very important to have somebody to tell them, or have it very clearly marked off. That would be great.
all right. That was actually the last one on my list.
But
What else am I missing?
What about gate guard? Now, I'm an old timer. There used to be a gate guard, and
The
now
best
I'm
parties
not.
were at gate at midnight. Those were the best
Oh
ones.
my Lord, yes, they were. Don't even get me started on some of that. Yeah, I'll do gate guard at 2 a.m. Sure. But now do they even have those? Because
I've not seen one except for at wars now. And I couldn't tell you how many years. But people now have, not everybody, but a lot of people have, you know, the magic of the interwebs, right? And they can put the gate codes out there when they're right. And people can let themselves in.
when they're
I mean,
right. Yeah.
I know what, I mean, it's happened. We've had one recently where, you know, we were told the wrong code. But I mean, by the state park. It was by the state park, but
It worked out.
Let's see.
but anyway, so yeah, that's and there's so many other, I'm sure you probably have like, you know, 1,200 other things that positions and roles, and that's great. I mean, the more people you have to share the wealth, so to speak, of making an event happen, the better. That way, those 3 people are not just killing themselves for their, you know, weekend off. But just communicate.
The other big one that I thought of was children's activity. A minister of children's. You don't have to have one, but that has become a popular thing. And our kingdom minister of children does a really good job, but there's a lot to that too.
She does. Yeah, because those people you have to have a warranted MOC. You can't just be like, hey, I'm good with children. Yeah. No, we don't allow that.
And someone else with them. You have to have 2.
And I just realized that needs to be a line in your budget for children's activities, you know, unless, you know, the supplies are being donated. But that should, you know, there's a line in your budget for that if you get crayons, colors, whatever, supplies for art stuff, whatever.
And there could be lines in the budget for any of those spots. There could be you know, if you're, you know, what toilet paper is the nasty and trash bags is the Nastycrat gonna swap out with if someone doesn't have those in the
Budget.
budget to purchase? So,
Right.
and that's just
Yeah, but
communication. It's like I show up, am I expected to bring the toilet paper? Or did the Feastocrat buy the toilet paper? Or the Autocrat buy the
Yeah. Right. You
Yeah.
know, but that's like you mentioned, this one that's like the kingdom can step in and help if needed, or help you find somebody. The marshals for an event, for any of the combat activities. I know that Earl Marshal can step in and help you find somebody if you don't have a somebody to marshal certain activities in your group or your event.
Absolutely.
So
And same thing with A&S, you know, finding someone, if you have A&S competitions,
Right.
somebody to run those.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and if you have classes, you know, some people have a quote unquote classicrat because we like to put Ocrat behind everything. I mean,
like
are you
it,
gonna
classy crap? I like that.
classicrat?
Brad.
You know, do you need one? Are you gonna have one? Who is gonna do those? And they don't have to have a cute little title. Who's gonna do the thing if you want to have it at your event? And it doesn't have to be someone in your group, like Roz said. But you know, reach out. We're all, you know, one big happy SCA family, and most people will help if you give them a heads up and ask them nicely and tell them what you expect them to do,
Yeah, I think
not
people
what
like.
you mentally assume they will do.
Right.
Yeah, and
Delegate.
I think that, and to come full circle on this, it comes back to your autocrat.
Yes.
Is delegating and managing these roles and stuff, and you know, that's where the kind of the communication hub is making sure all these things go off in a timely and a well thought out manner, you know.
Yes.
So
The autocrat's like the little duck floating on the water with, but the little legs are like everything's fine. Everybody's doing what they're supposed
And
to
they
do.
stick their head under the water to get a
And
breather.
scream. Yeah.
it just scream
And
pillows, pillows
scream into
for
the void. And yeah, there's, I mean, you can have however many other roles and names for people's jobs, but as long as the autocrat knows the things that they need and knows who's going to do those things and has an open line of communication, should
That's
be
good.
fine.
That's
Right?
good. All right, Dot, do you have any other questions for?
No, I think it's been great. I think it's eye-opening. I hope it helps the groups that are about to host some springtime events. I know it's still in the middle of winter, but we do have events coming up in the next couple months. So get them ducks in a row.
Not upside down. Well, thank you for being with us tonight, Your Grace. We appreciate your time. We appreciate the discussion on event roles and such. It was enlightening, and I hope it was helpful for everybody out there in Glen Alvin and beyond. So we'll see you guys out there at your next event. And anything else from you, Dot, to say? She's done.
Nope.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
You.
Bye.